Stage with Michael Kay. Now, here's your host, Michael Kay.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome to Center Stage. Today's guest grew up north of the border in Montreal. He graduated from Canada's esteemed McGill University, and he eventually moved to New York City in pursuit of a career in acting. He appeared in many of television's first generation of top programs, including Playhouse 90, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and Dr. Kildare. But it was the science fiction series Star Trek, where he played the role of James T. Kirk, captain of the USS Enterprise, that made him a cultural icon. He later reprised the role in 7 Star Trek feature films while continuing to star in successful series such as T.J. Hooker, Rescue 911, and Boston Legal. He's worked as a musician, producer, director, and celebrity pitchman, and has also written several novels set in the Star Trek universe, along with a series of science fiction novels called Tech War that were later adapted for television. His latest book is Shatner Rules, your guide to understanding the Shatnerverse and the world at large. Please welcome a man who is about to boldly go where over 150 other guests have already gone, William Shatner. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the show.
I just sank into this chair.
Very comfortable chair.
It is, but I've disappeared from view.
All right, so you have a show like this, Shatner's Raw Nerve.
Yes, somewhat similar.
Now, do you like being on this side or that side?
Well, interviews are partly that I don't do.
You never do that?
No.
Okay.
You got your next question?
No, not yet. I have to listen to your answer.
Look at the next question.
Okay.
Now I'm going to give you the answer to the previous question.
Okay. Shoot.
Interviews are sort of semi-entertainment. Mm-hmm. You're trying to keep the ball up and make it interesting, as against if you're having a conversation with somebody in the bar and they can get up and leave. I mean, it would be very tough for you to get up. We have these 6 big guys here who all played for the Giants, and they'll keep you in your seat. You can't get up. Whereas if you're on that side, you can look at the questions and you've got your lines, and you're not as responsible for the entertainment value. On the other hand, asking the questions, the show I do is filmed, and we edit it down to the appropriate amount of time. So as against being live, where you have to get something going right away,
right.
I can talk to you about your 4 hours of sleep and how do you feel and why, and the game last night, and aren't we happy, and talk about how did you get interested in the Yankees, and slowly we involve your father and your mother and the Yankee tradition, and we're into your home,
right,
into the interior of you. So that's fun, to be able to have the luxury of opening up a conversation and not having the necessity, forgive me for pointing it out, but I know you need to refresh yourself, not have the necessity of thinking what is the next question, but allowing the next question to evolve from the conversation, from what the subject matter is, and it becomes like interesting. Like, what did you say? And did you blink there? Did you mean what you said? Because you blinked. And you have to be looking to see the blink. So that's great fun for me. I even designed, see the way we are.
The chairs were great. Yeah, it's like a love seat.
Well, it was, and so there was this distance here, maybe a little closer. If I kissed you, would that be?
My wife might mind.
But your wife might be jealous.
Yeah,
but I've seen your wife. I understand she would be jealous. What about this distance here, which is not enough to get in the way, but close enough to have it, and see 2 guys having a drink and talking. That's what I tried to evoke.
Now, any interview with you has to talk about Star Trek, and I don't know if that bothers you or not. So, 40 years ago, it premiered. 45 years ago. Did you think when it premiered that it would ever have these kind of legs? And did you think it was going to be a success at all?
Are you aware that in 45 years, this talk show will have a conventions, and they're going to make a film. They're going to make a feature film of this talk show, 45.
Really?
It says It's as absurd as that. I mean, what are you talking about? This is a 3 years of a science fiction show that came and went, and it was meaningful to us. But why would it be meaningful to you?
Did you think it was special at all? Did you say this is
the
good
writing
work?
On some of the stuff? Some of the episodes were really well written, and some of the stories were inspired, if not actually written for television, by some of the great science fiction writers. But in the historical context of doing a weekly show, you're running all the time, 10 pages of dialogue to learn every day, and publicity and people and autograph and thing, and you're just overwhelmed. So to have a moment to reflect on, wow, this is really good, I wonder if this is going to go anywhere, hardly occurs.
Were you the first choice for James T. Kirk?
No, there was another actor by the name of Jeffrey Hunter who had been cast in a pilot of Star Trek, and it didn't sell. But NBC liked the concept enough to say to Gene Roddenberry, the producer, recast it. And that's when he reached out to me.
Now, it seems like Kirk and Shatner are a perfect fit, but obviously you made it the perfect fit. Did you model that after anything?
No. I had done Alexander the Great. This was before Star Trek. So I played the part of Alexander the Great. I had to ride bareback, half naked.
Okay.
The horse was naked.
Gotcha.
Historically, I did some research on him, and he'd been offered the saddle, and he said, "No, that's too weak. That's too namby-pamby." However you say that in Greek. I believe the Greek for namby-pamby is Christos. And ultimately, he met his fate at the Kush Mountains with other horsemen who did ride with the saddle. They were able to stand up in the stirrups, fire arrows, and defeated him for the first time. Later, it was going to be sold as a series as well. It didn't sell as a series, resulting in my being able to do Star Trek. That whole idea of Alexander and the soldier philosopher and the best educated man of his time and all that informed me about how to play Captain Kirk.
All right, so you play Captain Kirk for 3 years, and it's canceled.
Yes.
So at the beginning, you don't think 45 years later we're going to be talking about it, but at the end of the 3 years, did you ever think that Captain Kirk would ever be in your life again?
No. I mean, it was the end of a job. Actors are always out of a job.
Tell me about the book, Shatner Rules. You're a humorous person. It comes across on screen. Is this all funny, or is there serious stuff in here that people should...
Well, the best way to entertain people, the phrase in show business is funny as money. Well, what that really means is that people like to be amused. They like to cry, too. They like to be emotional. But if something's funny and emotional, that's really good. And that's difficult to do, to get a laugh and tear at the same time. That's like hitting a grand slam.
Right.
Okay. So, the book is funny.
But what's really cool about it is that, I mean, the main premise is you say yes to things. Just say yes to
that's the premise.
things.
The premise is to saying yes to life.
Right.
The older you get, the easier it is to say no. You know, no, I don't think I'll go out. No, I'm not going to go to that day. No, I won't meet that person. It's easier at times to say no to life. My book's premise is say yes to life.
We're going to say yes and go back to Montreal, where it all began for William Shatner when Centerstage returns right here on Yes.
Yankees.
Welcome back to Center Stage. Over here, we're talking with actor, musician, author, and celebrity pitchman William Shatner.
Celebrity pitchman, I love that.
You like that?
Celebrity.
You're great at it.
Well, thank you.
It started Côte St. Luc in Montreal.
No, actually, Girouard Avenue. I'm born in Montreal.
Okay.
I grew up there.
What'd your parents do?
My dad was a clothing manufacturer. My mother was a mother and housewife. And I went to school there.
But when did you get the bug to act?
Well, somewhere in a children's camp when I was about 6. In fact, it was a relative who was running the camp.
An aunt, right?
An aunt. And just a little tiny
small
red,
one, yeah.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
Yeah, dangerous. With a fight. Hey, you wouldn't believe it. Okay.
I should have said aunt. That would have avoided that.
Yes. So my aunt ran the camp, and I was in camp play. And I did something about say goodbye to the Germans were coming and the Nazis were there, and there's a whole audience of people who were affected by that, and they started to cry when I was done. And oh my God, look what I've done! What did I do? I'm 6. I don't know. So I think that was the bug.
Now in high school, you had a nickname, Tufty?
Yes, I had to fight all the time.
How come?
Well, anti-Semitism and all that kind of thing.
Really?
I had to defend myself more than one guy at a time at times.
Now McGill University, I've read, is the Harvard of Canada.
Yes.
But I've also read that you weren't a great student, so how did you get into the Harvard of Canada?
I don't know, because I've puzzled that one over for a long time. This past year, when they honored me with a doctorate, I said my last couple of lines to the students. I said, "Don't be afraid of making an ass of yourself." I said, "I do it all the time, and look what I got."
All right, so you're out of McGill, and you want to start an acting career, and you go to New York City.
Right.
How do you get there? What's it like when you get here?
Okay, so I'd been to New York City because I had paddled a canoe from Montreal to New York.
Why?
Why? The question is, why not?
Because you said yes.
Why not paddle a canoe down the St. Lawrence River with 8 other guys, a war canoe? And we arrive in New York City. I'm 17.
Right.
And I'm looking around, and I walk around Times Square, and I'm thinking, New York City. And I've just paddled a canoe. I became a celebrity for that 30 seconds of these crazy Canadians have just come down in a war canoe. Why? We don't know why. We just did it.
So you're at Times Square.
So I'm Times Square, and I'm looking around.
Right.
This is where I belong. It took me another few years to get here because I had to go through the summer theater, winter theater, to Toronto, to Stratford, Ontario, 3 years of Shakespeare. Come down to New York in a play by Marlowe called Tamburlaine. I get some notices, agents and things, people recognize me. I get into live television.
Now tell me about the Radio City incident. A guy told you, would you like to go see the Rockettes?
Yes.
What happened there?
I believe that was when I arrived by canoe.
Right.
With only a loincloth. What could this guy have been? So I'm looking around. I've never been to New York. The guy says, "New in town?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm new in town. I just paddled into town." The guy says, "Have you ever seen Radio City musicals?" "No, but I've heard about it." He said, "Would you like to go?" "Oh my God, yeah." He said, "I'll take you." He said, "Come along." He said, so I go, and he buys my ticket. He sits down beside me. There are these beautiful girls with the rocket legs.
Uh-huh.
And as I'm walking rocket legs, I feel his hand.
On the loincloth.
On the loincloth.
All right, so we go through all of these stops along the way. When did you tell your dad, "I'm not taking over the family business"? And how did he take that?
About the 4th year in university.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to my dad, "I want to be an actor." He said, "What?" No. He said, "You'll be a hanger-on. You don't want to do that. You'll never be able to make a living on it. Do this." "Oh, I can't." So he said, "All right. You have to do."
He didn't fight you on it, but he was disappointed.
Very disappointed. I gave myself a year or 2 or 3 to do something, and if I couldn't do it, I'd come back.
We'll explore that year or 2 or 3 when we return on Center Stage right here on Yes.
Thursday, it's a Champions League showdown.
Welcome back to Center Stage. Our guest is a living cultural icon. You are.
A living, barely alive.
Cultural icon. You're iconic. When you get out of McGill, you said you gave yourself 1, 2, 3 years. What was your ideal? Okay, this is what I'd like. If I could make this a week.
$100 a week. I was making about 35, I think.
Mm-hmm.
During the 5 or 6 years that I was in Canada after McGill.
Could you live on that?
No, I didn't eat all the time.
Okay.
But I paid the rent,
and you wouldn't call up Dad and say, I need money? You didn't want to do that?
No, I didn't want to do that. So I struggled. In Toronto, for example, there was a hotel that had a restaurant and a bar. Mm-hmm. And in the restaurant was advertised all you can eat for a couple of dollars, something like that. So that would be my meal of the day. Then that restaurant would close at 8 o'clock. And the bar would open at 8:01. And the bar used the hotel as a where the girls ran their tricks. Mm-hmm. And because I knew no one, I was so lonely, I'd go from all you can eat to and the girls took me under their wing, and we'd be in conversation, and they'd say, excuse me, I have to go, and they'd leave for a while, and they'd come back, and they'd finish their meal or a drink or whatever it was. It was extraordinary.
And they were that clinical that they went like that?
Well, I don't know if that was clinical or a gesture. Well, that's right.
All right, so you're making $31 a week, and you end up going back to New York, and you say Tamberlane the Great.
Right.
How'd you get
the
that?
Great was there. Stratford, in my third year, decided to bring a play down to New York, and I was discovered there, and suddenly became part of the New York scene.
How unbelievable, though, is that for you? I mean, could you even fathom that this was happening to you?
No. Anthony Quayle, who was an outstanding Shakespearean actor of the time, was playing Tamberlane with great strength. He was the Mongol invader, stripped to the waist, muscles. And I had invited the agents and the producers who were interested in me to come that night, and somebody, not me, somebody played a practical trick on Anthony Quayle. He was supposed to take a sheaf of papers and read, and in an extreme rage, rip them up and say, forsooth, or whatever he said.
Right.
So somebody handed him parchment, leather. He can't tear it up.
Right.
Cast started laughing. The audience started laughing. And I believe I saw the agents and the producers walking out. It took me a long time to overcome that and break in. So that was New York for me.
Right, so you're in New York now. It's during the golden age of television, and you're starting to get work on that.
Yeah.
How special was it being a part of that scene?
Extraordinary.
It's like Broadway quality work, right? On TV.
Everybody on Broadway was doing live television.
Yeah.
Because I'd had all this experience of doing one play a week,
right,
in many cases. I'd done many plays, and maybe as many as 100 plays over the 5 or 6 year period of time. I was adept at learning lines and taking the thing and playing, just letting it happen. There were many American actors who didn't have that experience. It wasn't happening down here. I did well in in the latter part of live television. I probably did more than anybody else. I mean, that's the word. That I was going from one week to another, to one of these well-known shows to the other.
Now, did that lead to the 1958 film, The Brothers Karamazov?
Well,
was that your first American film?
Yes, I think that as a result of the cheekbones I had then, that enough like Yul Brynner and Lee J. Cobb, coincidentally, and other wonderful actors, we all had this Slavic look about us, and I believe that was a huge reason for my being cast, in addition to what they might have seen on camera.
Now, in that movie, Yul Brynner was in it, as you said.
Yeah.
Well, I read stories where he used to kick you in the butt. Well, what was that about? Was that because he liked you?
I don't know.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
Yeah. He would just kick you in the butt.
Yes. He would
kind of
he
rude.
would say, Bill, hey, Bill, pop. Now, and I had been playing football. And I thought, do I hit this guy back? What do I do?
Yeah. Tuffy would have hit him.
Who? Tuffy would have hit him, exactly. I was warring. Tuffy and Billy were... so my wife said, well, maybe it's a term of endearment. So I thought, yeah, that's it. It's a Russian. I think it was Swiss or Russian or something.
Right.
So the next time he kicked me, hey, Bill, I said, hey, you. Whoa. And I thought I'd get, hey, thank you, Bill, friend.
Didn't get that.
No, I didn't get that. What the hell are you doing? I'm the star of this movie. How dare you kick me? I thought you were good.
Now, during this time, you're known as a classic working actor. You're going to be there on time, you're going to do your job, and you're going to do it well. Is that a compliment in retrospect or not?
That's the worst insult I have ever heard.
That you were a working actor?
That I did my job, I learned my lines, I was there on time. That's insulting.
It is terrible.
I didn't know my words, I was never there, and I failed miserably. No, of course. I mean, in everything. I mean, if you make an appointment with somebody, to me it's an insult if you're really late. It's so disrespectful to be late to somebody who's waiting. Even more so in our business, whereby the hand goes around. I mean, you're on the clock.
But there are guys that do this.
All the time.
Right.
And I don't understand that. So, yes, no, that was a point of pride.
Now, you also got parts in The Twilight Zone, which is an iconic series. Was it special to you?
No, it was just another job.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun script, and you did it, and did the best you could. And there was that one about the thing on the wing. They got a lot
Nightmare of 20,000 Feet.
Nightmare of 20,000 Feet. And, the wonderful part was it was all me. What's the thing about? It's about you. Oh, good. So, there'd be this strange guy who was a acrobat. They put into a furry suit, and he was on the outside of the wing.
Right.
He wasn't aerodynamic at all. So when I would look out the window and he was there,
right?
What the heck? Okay. So then the camera's here, so you got to turn back. What was that I saw? Turn back, and he's not there. And my kids, when we go on an air flight, go someplace,
right?
My kids would say, "Do the look." So they'd call the what do we call them now? The
flight attendant.
The flight attendant.
Right.
Would you come over here a moment? I'd look at the window, and then one of my daughters would give me the elbow and go, "What?" It was great fun.
We'll be back on Centerstage in a moment.
How do you engineer?
Welcome back to Centerstage. We are here with Bill Shatner. Now, in '66, you're having a play written for you called The Hyphen.
Yes.
And then you get a phone call from your agent about a television pilot.
As we spoke earlier, I had done this pilot called Star Trek, but it hadn't sold. The first one hadn't sold, so. And I had done Alexander the Great, and that didn't sell. And I thought, oh, that's working. And the great playwright, Norman Colwell,
right.
He was one of the great playwrights, poets in America, and he wrote a play for me, and we were going to do it. We were going to bring it to New York. Well, I got a phone call, and the pilot sold, so I couldn't take The Hyphen into New York.
All right, so Star Trek is picked up, and the first episode is September 8th, 1966. Were you pleased with the initial reviews? Were the reviews good?
No, the reviews were terrible. The reviews were terrible for the show and terrible for me.
They didn't like you, or they didn't like the premise?
They didn't like me, and I don't think many of them liked the premise.
Now, talk about the relationship between Spock and Kirk and you and Leonard Nimoy. Was it similar?
Well, Leonard comes from Boston, is my age, has a similar background, similar struggle to make it as an actor. Many, really beyond coincidental, it would seem, similarities. Mm-hmm. Our birthdays are 4 days apart. So we had a lot in common, and over the years have become great friends.
Did you like the people in the cast, or were they just people you're working with? Did you become friends?
Yes. Working in a television series, which I've done a number now, is overwhelming. It's hard physical work. It's hard mental work. It's a commitment of time to the detriment, and usually the destruction of relationships. When I did Boston Legal, and I had recently married Elizabeth, we had a long talk, and she didn't want me to do Boston Legal for that very reason.
Let's talk about November 22nd, 1960. I want to get the date right. First scripted American TV show to feature an interracial kiss. Did you realize that it was going to be that big a deal when it was in the script?
No, we didn't have the history in Canada you have in the States, so what the interracial stuff didn't make any. I didn't get that.
Right.
I didn't grasp it at the time, and it's very difficult to grasp now. What do you care about? But I certainly knew that it was a big deal. In fact, some southern stations wouldn't play that
right.
segment. But she's a beautiful woman, and certainly was then, and kissing her was very pleasant.
Was it a good kiss?
Yeah, slightly.
So it wasn't really
slightly
acting?
Parted lips.
Really?
I remember her dewy skin, the touch of her fingers beside.
Now, you have a reputation in the show as being a ladies' man.
I know.
You were filmed shirtless in the series.
Yes, as much as possible.
You had relations with a lot of women, a lot of aliens.
Oh my God, those aliens are incredible.
Is alien sex better than human sex?
There is a line. There's a line in the Charles Sheen roast.
2.5 Men.
That I said to him, Charlie, I've had my day with senoritas as well. I've had sex in space with green aliens. Now, it's true, you've had sex with blue ladies, because unlike you, they can't handle their drugs. That's how good it is.
Yeah. All right. Life after Star Trek when we continue on Centerstage. We're talking to TV and film legend William Shatner.
And Rencontre.
Yes, that too. And Pitchman.
I threw a no-hitters at Pitchman.
You have?
Yeah.
Almost a perfect game.
That's it.
Did your dad see your success before he passed?
He didn't really. He died in 1968. He saw this moderately successful show. They didn't give us much money on that show, and you get into a certain way of life. You're a television star. You got to have a nice car or something. You got to live a little bit better than beat-up Chevrolet I used to drive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was barely making ends meet even then.
Now, during the series, you get divorced. And then after the series, it takes you a while to get right back on your feet. I mean, you really, I don't know if you would consider it rock bottom. Would you have? What you hit after that?
Well, it depends how you define rock bottom. I didn't have any money in the bank. I had 3 kids, and made me go out on the road, touring upstate New York and Connecticut in summer theater. The thing is, I needed to save money, so I bought an old truck, and I put a camper on the back of the truck. The things that sit on the truck, and I would sleep in the camper when I was doing the summer theater. So,
wow. So you're sleeping in your car?
In effect, sleeping in my car.
Now, a decade after the film or the series ends, the films come about. Did it surprise you? Was it building to that point where people were crying?
Well, there were some rumors. We're going to make another television. We're going to make a television movie. And then one day, somebody said, we're going to make a huge movie.
So you were down with that?
Yeah, I was good with that.
Yeah. Well, now, you end up getting back into TV after all the Star Trek movies. I think you did 7 of them, right?
Yeah.
Star Trek movies. You go to T.J. Hooker.
Yeah.
Rescue 911. Mm-hmm. And then you go on a guest spot on The Practice, which leads to Boston Legal, right? And it also seems like at that time, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you've always been thought of as a dramatic actor, but then you found you're funny, or at least you showcased it. Is it harder to be funny, or is it harder to be dramatic?
When I was in Canada doing all those plays, I was the light comedian in Canada. I thought it was pretty funny.
Right.
And I got down here, they started putting me in dramatic roles, but underneath all that was the guy who was looking for the fun of it. So when I was being funny, I was just hearkening back to my roots. There was a burlesque house in Montreal. Does anybody remember Lily St. Cyr? Do you remember that? You have to be over... You have to have gray hair.
I don't remember.
Nah, you never went there. You had your wife. Lily St. Cyr was every schoolboy's dream. And she'd play every so often at the burlesque house in downtown Montreal. On a Friday afternoon, we'd go down and watch. And I mean, she was terrific. But what I found better than Lily St. Cyr was the burlesque slapstick comedians. I rolled in the aisles on that. Yeah. Doctor says, you're going to live to be 60. Doctor, I am 60. See, I told you.
You like that?
I love that. What's the difference between a Jewish mother and a Rottweiler? Eventually, a Rottweiler lets go. I love it. That throttled back was drawing room comedy.
Now, did you have any of that in Denny Crane? Which,
absolutely.
What a great character.
Yeah.
Did you love playing Denny Crane?
Oh, I loved it.
Are you surprised that the ground it covered? Because it covered some serious stuff, boss.
Sure.
Yeah.
No. David Kelly's a genius. He wrote 22 scripts of Ally McBeal.
Right.
And 22 scripts of The Practice, and won an Emmy for drama and for comedy the same year. He wrote 44 scripts in 1 year. Oh, well, that's impossible.
Genius, you think?
Genius, yeah. A genius I know.
The Negotiator becomes The Negotiator when we return on Center Stage.
ESPN New York brings you services.
A guy named his own price wants a room tonight for $65.
We don't go lower than $130.
Big deal. Persuade.
Is it wise to allow a perishable item to spoil?
He asked, why leave a room empty?
The additional revenue easily covers operating costs.
$65 better than no dollars.
Okay, $65 for tonight.
You can't argue with a big deal.
This is Center Stage. We're talking with actor, musician, and author of the latest book, Shatner Rules, your guide to understanding the Shatnerverse and the world at large. And it's William Shatner is with us. All right, so a lot of young people, might have heard of Captain Kirk, but they don't really identify you with Captain Kirk. They identify you with The Negotiator, Priceline.com.
Well, maybe a little more than that, but perhaps. Who am I to say?
Did you think it was going to be this big a deal?
Many years ago, a friend of my wife's came to the house and said, I'm starting this company with 3 other guys, and got some voiceover commercials. Would you do them? My wife says, yeah, do them a favor. So I'm in New Zealand, and I toss off 3 or 4 voiceover commercials for a .com. I didn't even know what a .com company was.
Right.
It's Priceline. And then over the phone, I said, no, it's Priceline.com. No, so I said, Priceline.com. They said, no, it's Priceline.com. Like, that's the important part of it.
Okay.
Priceline.com. And man, I have no meaning. What the hell's .com? My aunt, you know. So I started doing, and that's how it started. And then one thing led to another. It was extraordinary.
Now, I know it's kind of awkward to talk about money, but I heard you got filthy rich from Priceline.com.
No, I got filthy. Rich never came about. What happened was, they said, here, we'll pay you in, I said, pay me in stock.
Right.
So the stock starts at a few pennies, and in the .com bubble goes up to $150. I'm rich. But those people who are in on the beginning of an IPO,
right,
you're restricted. You can't sell for a year or a year and a half, 2 years, depending on what it is.
So you couldn't sell out when it was $150?
No. Some people in the company were able to sell as it was just plummeting.
Right.
I was restricted. All I could do was watch. And it goes back to a couple of pennies.
Right.
And then everybody, well, it's the end of .com is bubble. You better get out while you can. So for a couple of pennies, everybody sold their stock. Whereupon,
right,
Priceline, because it's a good company, and it wasn't just this flybynight.com.
Right.
It was Priceline.com. Began to do good business, and commercials became really good. So between the good company and the good marketing, it's up to...
Up again, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know about the others, but I long since left that one.
Tell me about this. This is, the name is Searching for Major Tom.
Well, it's actually Seeking Major Tom. So you've got it right.
Okay.
Change the title somewhere after the book was published. I write about it in the book because part of the book, the philosophy of the book is say yes. So when I was doing Star Trek, I said yes to doing an album, concept album called The Transformed Man. I do a variety of numbers, including Mr. Tambourine Man and Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I'm acting them, okay? They're drug songs, so I'm doing drug. Gets laughed at, poked fun at, and I go along with it, although there was a serious concept behind The Transformed Man. Ben Folds, when he's a young man, listens to The Transformed Man, becomes a fan. We do Has Been, which got great notices, and that leads to Seeking Major Tom. David Bowie writes Space Oddity, and he has Major Tom stepping out. 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, lift off there, Major Tom. Where are you, Major Tom? No Major Tom, he's gone. End of song. What happened to Major Tom? Did Major Tom walk on the moon? Space Cowboy? Bohemian Rhapsody? Twilight Zone? So, all those songs, 20 of them,
right.
two disc album, trace what I think happened to Major Tom on cover songs that were popular at the time. It's a monumental record and deserves listening.
Can you tell us where he ends up, or we have to listen to the...
He goes to heaven in a Sinatra song and ends up in hell with Zakk Wylde and Iron Man. I do Iron Man, and I won a heavy metal headbanger award from Revolver magazine.
Wow. He has done it all, and when we return, he's going to do Hit and Run. That's going to be the toughest thing he's ever done on Center Stage. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Thursday, it's a Champions League showdown right here on Guess.
This is Center Stage. We're here with William Shatner. You've done so much in your career, but you've never played Hit and Run.
No.
It's going to be a little nerve-wracking.
Hit and Run.
Well, here you go. I'll say something first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
No, this is not password. Favorite type of role? Cop, doctor, lawyer, or spaceship captain?
Spaceship captain.
Favorite meal?
Steak.
Favorite dish to prepare?
Steak.
Really?
No, smoked pork butt.
Are you a good cook?
I am no good. But I can smoke a butt, I'm telling you.
Which brings us back to that Rockette situation.
That's right. It wasn't the butt he was after. My tenderloin, actually.
Next best
My tenderloin.
All right. Next best Star Trek captain: Patrick Stewart, Avery Brooks, Kate Mulgrew, Scott Bakula, or Chris Pine?
All of them. You're not going to get me to make it out of them.
Well, you're the best one.
Of course.
Okay. Favorite Star Trek villain?
Khan.
You've always had the need for speed. What's the fastest you've ever driven?
185 miles an hour in a NASCAR.
You were scared? Really? Best piece of advice anyone ever gave you?
Do not get into a NASCAR.
The most memorable moment in your career?
Right now.
Really? I'm touched.
Not by me. My tenderloin is still there.
The actor you most worried about playing opposite?
Chris Plummer.
How come?
He's so good.
Okay. Now, in Fight Club, Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, he asked Edward Norton what celebrity he'd like to fight, and he said William Shatner.
Yeah.
Would you win that fight?
Oh, my God, I'd kick his ass.
Favorite film that you weren't in?
Probably Lawrence of Arabia.
Favorite athlete of all time?
Bruce Jenner.
Favorite late night snack?
Smoked pork butt.
Keeps coming back to that. And finally, If you were in a foxhole, who would you want there with you to help you get out?
I would like somebody from Priceline.com. I'd negotiate my way out of that foxhole.
He hasn't negotiated himself out of the last segment. That's coming up next on Center Stage.
IntelliChoice.
Welcome back to Center Stage. We had a great hour here with William Shatner. I guess the first unofficial Star Trek convention was a year after the show was canceled.
I believe so.
And then 3 years later, it became an official one in New York. And in 1975, you attended the first one. You had an unbelievable Saturday Night Live skit about it. What's it really like? Is it unsettling? Is it complimentary? Is it fun?
What they wanted me to do on that first thing that seemed so overwhelming was to go out in front of 15,000 people and talk like you and I are talking.
Okay.
Now, how do you do that for an hour? How do you possibly say what's on your mind? I mean, all the possible things that could go wrong, including the words you say that are inappropriate or words you can't think of at that moment.
Right.
Well, I've done that for many years now, gone out at various times to Star Trek conventions and spoken like you and I are speaking. The reason I'm able to do it well enough to stay with you is, in my opinion, is because of the conditioning I got at conventions.
Do you feel love from those people, or is it scary love?
I just directed a documentary that I'm calling Fanatics, wherein I try to examine why people go to conventions. Who are these people? What do they want? And why are they there? And although I wrote a book about it called Get a Life, apropos of what you were talking about, in which I discovered that they go there to see each other, they are, in fact, going for an even further, deeper reason. They're going because of passion. That's something else I examined, the passion of going there. But on another level, they're going there to participate in the ritual of the mythology, the cultural mythology of Star Trek. Every culture needs a mythology. Star Trek is the cultural mythology. That the fans' participation in that cultural mythology by dressing up, putting on makeup, autographs, and even go further. People came from Japan in wardrobe. Couples got married in their costumes. That this indulgence in the mythology and the hero worship of the captains is part of a cultural myth. And do you feel love? You feel loved, and you feel part of this mythology. It's a very interesting other level that the Star Trek phenomenon is put on.
Tell me about the Hollywood Charity Horse Show, and why is this so important to you?
Many years ago, almost 30, I started a charity. I made it a horse show because of my passion for horses. I called it the Hollywood Charity Horse Show. It benefits children in need.
Right.
And so every penny that we get from the Hollywood, there's no money taken off for administration and all, goes to the kids. Of late, my wife has broadened her horizons because many of the charities in Hollywood Charity Horse Show are riding therapeutic charities, a couple in particular. Hippotherapy, that's called, can apply to our veterans coming back, as emotionally disturbed children benefit from hippotherapy. So our emotionally bruised soldiers, both physically and emotionally, can benefit from hippotherapy. So she is pushing us to broaden the horizons, to welcome veterans and their families, because the kids are hurt in their way as much as the men and women coming back.
Right.
Hollywood Charity Horse Show is broadening its horizons to take in veterans for this hippotherapy.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Now, William is also a noted equestrian. You own a horse farm in Kentucky, so you really love it. You know, when I told people I was going to interview today, it seems like everybody smiles. People don't have negative energy about William Shatner. They like you. I mean, you're liked with everything you've done. And what you've done, it almost seems prolific. It is prolific. I mean, you've covered every spectrum of the business. Is your career above and beyond anything that you could have imagined? Are you happy with what your career has been?
You know, I've noticed that of late. Maybe it's been there for a long while, and I'm too apprehensive to take it in. But I've seen the affection. That's
a smile. You bring a smile.
They say Shatner, and they smile.
Right.
It's to say heartwarming doesn't even approach. It's so grand that it's overwhelming me, that I sort of have to push back against it. It's so warm and affectionate. Yeah, I'm so gratified that people will take their time and participate in this, for example, your audience or people watching the things I do. It's an extraordinary feeling, and I think about it a lot and appreciate it.
Very cool to meet you and talk with you. Thank you so much. That's William Shatner. I'm Michael Kay, and this is Centerstage. So long, everybody.
I enjoy seeing William Shatner on Boston Legal and things other than Star Trek because he transcends acting. He's just a living legend.
Anything he does, he just takes on the role and he becomes the role.
I think it's his diversity, his humor. What's there not to love about it right now?
He really immerses himself in the role, and you never think it's, oh, here's William Shatner. You only see him as the character he's playing.